Manchester City is now one of the defining clubs of modern football. The sky blue shirts, the Premier League trophies, the global fanbase, and the polished stadium in East Manchester make City look like a permanent giant. But the club's story did not begin with global ownership, record revenues, or superstar squads. It began in 1880 as St. Mark's of West Gorton, a local team rooted in a Manchester community. That origin matters because it shows how different football once was. Clubs were not born as international brands. They were formed around neighborhoods, churches, workplaces, and local identity. Before Manchester City became a symbol of elite modern football, it was a small local institution trying to find its place in a rapidly growing sport. The club's early name changes reveal its gradual transformation. St. Mark's became Ardwick Association Football Club in 1887, then Manchester City in 1894. That final name was a powerful shift. It no longer tied the club only to one district. It gave the team the identity of an entire city. In the same year, the club adopted the sky blue shirts that remain central to its image today. A name and a color can sound like small details, but in football they become emotional anchors. They give supporters something to recognize, inherit, and defend. By the end of the 19th century, Manchester City had the basic identity it still carries: the city name, the sky blue shirt, and the ambition to compete beyond its local beginnings. City joined the Football League in 1892, placing the club inside the organized structure of English professional football. This was an important step because the Football League created regular competition, clear status, and a pathway for clubs to build national reputations. For Manchester City, joining the league meant moving from local relevance toward a bigger sporting stage. The club was now part of a football ecosystem where results, promotion, relegation, and trophies shaped identity. This period also reflected the wider growth of English football. Industrial cities were producing passionate crowds, and clubs were becoming symbols of civic pride. City's future would be filled with dramatic highs and painful lows, but league football gave the club the framework in which that long story could unfold. The first major proof of Manchester City's potential came in 1904, when the club won the FA Cup. At that time, the FA Cup was one of the most prestigious prizes in English football, and winning it gave City national credibility. This was not just another result. It showed that the club could compete with the best teams in the country and produce moments that would last in supporter memory. The trophy also began a recurring pattern in City's history: flashes of major success followed by long periods of uncertainty. City would never be a simple story of steady progress. Its identity would be shaped by contrast, by the distance between what the club could achieve at its best and how far it could fall when things went wrong. For much of the 20th century, Manchester City's emotional home was Main Road. The club moved there in 1923 and played there for 80 years. Stadiums matter in football because they are more than venues. They hold the memories of generations: first matches, famous wins, frustrating defeats, songs, rituals, and family traditions. Main Road became the physical center of City's identity long before the club entered its modern era. It connected supporters to a shared past, even during periods when the team was inconsistent. When City later moved to the City of Manchester Stadium in 2003, it gained a modern platform for growth. But Main Road remained a symbol of the older club: local, emotional, unpredictable, and deeply tied to its supporters. Manchester City's first great modern golden age came in the late 1960s and early 1970s under Joe Mercer and Malcolm Allison. This period is crucial because it proves that City had serious success long before the 2008 takeover. Under Mercer and Allison, the club won the league title, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the European Cup Winners' Cup. That collection of trophies gave City a proud historical foundation. It showed the club could be stylish, ambitious, and competitive at the highest levels of English and European football. For older supporters, this era became proof of what City was capable of becoming. It also made later struggles more painful, because the club's decline was measured against the memory of a team that had once stood among the best. After the highs of that successful era, City entered a much darker chapter. The defeat in the 1981 FA Cup final was followed by decline, instability, and eventually a dramatic fall. In 1998, Manchester City were relegated to the third tier of English football for the only time in their history. For a club with major trophies, a large fan base, and the name Manchester City, that was a stunning low point. But it became one of the most important parts of the club's identity. Supporters who stayed through that period could say they followed City when there was no glamour attached. The third-tier season created a powerful contrast with everything that came later. Modern trophies feel different when a fanbase remembers how far the club once fell. City's recovery began quickly, but it was not instant dominance. The club returned to the top tier in 1999 to 2000 and has remained in the Premier League since the 2002-03 season. This was a rebuilding phase. City needed stability, not just ambition. The move to the City of Manchester Stadium in 2003 helped create the conditions for future growth. A modern stadium gave the club improved facilities, greater commercial possibilities, and a clearer sense of upward movement. Still, the club was not yet the machine people know today. It was a Premier League side trying to establish itself, strengthen its squad, and avoid slipping backward. The foundations were being laid, but the decisive transformation had not yet arrived. The turning point came in August 2008, when Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan took over Manchester City through the Abu Dhabi United Group. The takeover brought major financial investment and changed the club's ambitions almost overnight. City was no longer merely trying to survive in the Premier League. It now had the resources to challenge the established elite. Investment flowed into players, staff, infrastructure, and long-term planning. But money alone does not automatically create a great football club. It changes the possibilities, raises expectations, and increases pressure. City had to turn financial power into sporting success. The 2011 FA Cup was the first major trophy of this new era, and it mattered because it proved the project could deliver results, not just headlines. The 2012 Premier League title was the moment Manchester City fully announced itself as a new force in English football. A cup win can come from a short burst of form, but a league title demands consistency across an entire season. Winning the Premier League meant City had built a team strong enough to beat rivals over months of pressure. It also changed how the club was perceived. Supporters saw decades of frustration replaced by the highest domestic prize. Rivals now had to treat City as a permanent contender. Commercially, the title boosted the club's profile around the world. Psychologically, it created a new standard. Once City had proved it could win the league, the next challenge was much harder, becoming a club that could win again and again. Pep Guardiola's arrival in 2016 turned Manchester City from an ambitious elite club into one of the most dominant teams of the era. Between 2016 and 2026, City won 20 honors under his stewardship. Guardiola's impact was not only about trophies. He gave the team a clear footballing identity built on control, technical quality, pressing, positional intelligence, and relentless consistency. The 2017-18 season became a landmark when City won the Premier League with a record 100 points. That achievement showed a level of week-to-week dominance rarely seen in English football. Guardiola's City did not simply win matches. It often controlled the conditions of the game, forcing opponents to defend for long periods and rethink how to compete against such a structured, technically precise team. City's dominance reached historic levels with achievements no English men's team had previously matched. The club became the first English men's side to win a domestic treble, claiming the 3 main domestic trophies, as well as the Community Shield. Then came 4 consecutive league titles between the 2020-21 and 2023-24 seasons, an English football record. Winning 4 leagues in a row requires more than talent. It requires squad depth, tactical flexibility, hunger, recruitment, injury management, and the ability to handle being the team everyone wants to beat. This run made Manchester City the benchmark for modern English football. For rivals, City became the standard to chase. For supporters, it was the kind of sustained success earlier generations could barely have imagined. The 2023 Continental treble completed another part of City's transformation. Domestic dominance had already been established, but European success placed the club in a different historical conversation. At the same time, City's rise reflects the wider economics of modern football. The club topped the Deloitte Football Money League at the end of the 2021-22 season, with revenue estimated at about €731 million. Forbes valued the club at around $4.25 billion in 2022. Ownership through City Football Group also shows how football has changed, with clubs increasingly connected to global networks, commercial strategy, and international influence. Manchester City's story is therefore both inspiring and controversial. It is about community roots, loyal supporters, tactical brilliance, huge investment, and the transformation of football into a global industry. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.